Welcome to the NHL Wraparound podcast featuring Neil Smith, President General Manager of the 1994 Stanley Cup champion New York Rangers, and longtime ESPN NHL veteran Vic Morren. Together, they share no-nonsense opinions on news and issues around the National Hockey League. Whether you're a casual or diehard fan, each episode of NHL Wraparound will leave you more informed. Now, here's your hosts, Neil and Vic.
Welcome to NHL Wraparound. Vic Morren, along with my good friend Neil Smith. And for the first half of last decade, the Chicago Blackhawks were the envy of the NHL, winning 3 Stanley Cups in a 6-year span. Since then, the club has fallen on hard times, missing the playoffs 5 straight seasons, 7 of 8. And in fact, they have not won a playoff series since winning that last cup in 2015. But Neil, today's guest is the man behind the bench for the Blackhawks, who we believe has a real good opportunity to turn this franchise around.
This man has proven in his time in Detroit that he knows how to develop NHL players and help them get to the next level. Obviously, the Detroit management thought that because they kept Jeff Blashill there and didn't blame him for missing the playoffs. They knew they hadn't given him the horses. And Jeff, thanks for coming on to our show. And it's a privilege to have you on here as the coach of the Blackhawks now. You've had quite a blessed go. You've 2 original 6 teams and 2 bitter rivals.
Yeah, thanks, Neil, and thanks, Vic. It's I'm excited to be on it. You know, it's funny. It's when you really look at it, to have the chance to coach 2 original 6 teams like this. You know, I'm just a kid from Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. It's pretty amazing. I feel super blessed for the opportunities I've had, and so I'm excited to be a part of this great city of Chicago, and obviously. The fan base here is excellent, and it's a great sports city. So excited to be a part of it and kind of getting rolling here with camp. So it's been a fun week so far.
Well, but before I get on to our shared alma mater in a little bit of a way, Western Michigan University, where Jeff and I met when he was coaching the Broncos, and we had an anniversary night for the first ever Division I team at Lawson Ice Arena. You grew up in Sault Ste. Marie. You're born in Detroit. You grew up in the Upper Peninsula in Sault Ste. Marie. Your dad was working at Lake Superior State University. Did you want to play for the Lakers? Because I know you didn't. You didn't play for the Lake Superior State Lakers. You went on, but did you want to play there?
Yeah, for growing up, I was a huge Laker fan. I was a bigger college hockey fan probably than an NHL fan. Just kind of growing up, you know, in the middle of it, and at that time. You know, I watched Lake State go from, a small program to the best program in the country probably. And it was actually unbelievable. I remember University of Maine coming in. I remember all the battles within the CCHA, all those great teams. So in Northern Michigan, the battles between Lake State and Northern. And honestly, Neil, I would have, I went to play junior hockey in Des Moines, and I didn't know if I'd be a college player or not, but as the recruiting started to heat up, I certainly, in some ways, wanted to be a Laker. Now, in some ways, I wanted to move away too, though. Like it was a kind of a balance between the two. I was a huge Laker fan, but I literally grew up on campus. We lived in a housing that was part of the university, actually right next to the president. So I was a little bit excited to move away from a personal standpoint, but a big Laker fan. The fans used to chant at me, "You should have been a Laker," and I remember thinking I didn't have a choice, but they didn't want me, and they were right. By the way, they took Johnny Graham, who ended up playing a number of years in the NHL, and I got a quick study in coaching because I wasn't good enough in my years in college.
Well, you were a goalie, Jeff, and did you when you've been in all your different coaching places from the USHL all the way through the American League, winning a Calder Cup, and then of course in the NHL with Detroit, coaching them to their last playoff appearance. Did you take particular interest in the goalies? Because you yourself were a goalie. Was that something like, how do you handle that when you're out on the ice as the head coach, but you've played that position?
It's funny. I actually didn't do a very good job today. We had something going in practice, and we had a drill, and we had a shot, and then there was a coach passed it to the point for another shot, and it was happening so fast that the goalie didn't get a chance to react to where the first shot went to, and I didn't really think about it. Actually, I heard about it after. I was like, "Yep, you're right." I think the one thing I've had is the perspective of a goalie, and so like I think as a coach, you do drills, and sometimes I always think you either train people to do it right or you're training them to do it wrong. And if the goalie can't stop the puck and follow that rebound, then they're not doing what they're going to do in a game. And so you got to kind of design your drills accordingly. And I think there's a perspective from there that I think has helped. I coached the goalies when I was a head coach in junior. I coached the goalies when I was a head coach at Western, and a little bit in the American League. We had a little bit of a break between Chris Osgood being the goalie coach and then Jeff Saleko taking over. And then since then I haven't, and I've really left it to the goalie coaches, but kept the perspective of it. And I think some empathy of what the goalies are going through.
Usually the goaltenders go on to become color commentators. So, but I want to ask you too, before I let Vic have a word, but, Western Michigan University, the Broncos, win the national title. You were head coach there for one season. I played the first 4 seasons of their existence in Lawson Ice Arena for the first 4 years of Lawson Ice Arena, way back when, just after you were born. But it's amazing to me that that program has, won the national title. It's
awesome. It's unbelievable. I was so excited for so many people. There's been so many people, that have laid the groundwork over a long period of time for that to come to fruition, including yourself and your classmates. And you just go right through the list of so many great Broncos that kind of, built the foundation. And it takes years and years and years. And then, for Pat Ferschweiler to come back, taking over for Andy Murray, who did an excellent job. And then Pat comes in and honestly almost takes it to another level. The consistency with which they've won there is awesome. I know how hard that is. And, you can get lucky in one recruiting class, but to do it over and over and over, and now with the whole system that's in place with the portal and the transfer system and all that, it's harder, not easier. And he's maintained success year after year. It's really, really been amazing. But to not just be a good program, but then to show that you're the best was a special night. I'm sure it was special for you, knowing what the work you put in and your classmates put in to help make that a reality. It was special to watch for me, knowing how many different guys poured so much work in that. It was an awesome night, and I really have enjoyed Pat's success there.
It's hard to believe that I'm so old that I was the very first captain of the first Division I team for Western Michigan. So that speaks to that. But Vic, it's your turn.
Well, Jeff, you're no stranger to winning. You won the Clark Cup as head coach in Indiana in the USHL in 2009. You won the Calder Cup with Grand Rapids in the AHL in 2013. So you come to a franchise and the recent struggles are certainly well documented. In your first full team meeting with this group, what was your message to them, given what the perceived expectations are outside in the hockey world for this coming season?
Yeah, I mean, first off, there's arcs of franchises, and franchises are always going to be on a little bit of different arc, and you're gonna ebb and flow. That's the reality of the draft and free agency. Anytime you have those two, and the salary cap, I should say, anytime you have those things, it's you're going to kind of go through different modes. And the thing for us is certainly over the last few years, this franchise has been in that rebuild mode where you're at some point you hit rock bottom, and then it's harder than everybody thinks to get out of that. And then all of a sudden you start to kind of go the right direction. Yeah. Well, I know we're headed the right direction. I don't know. And I know we're going to get to a spot where we're going to win. I know those two things. I just don't know how long it's going to take us to get there. And I don't know what that means for this season. I wanted to make sure and remind our guys, that we play for one of the best sports franchises in all the world, not just in the NHL, not just in the United States. It's one of the truly best sports franchises in the world with some of the greatest fans, great ownership. So let's remember that, number one. Number two, we're going to focus on, again, at some point we are going to win. How we're going to get there is important. And so making sure that we start to build that winning culture and the things that go into a winning culture. And I know those are easy things to talk about, but if you go back and you just look at different examples, I use this example in my press conference of Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions. Dan Campbell didn't come in and they didn't win 15 games in a row. They came in and the first year was a grind, but they stuck to their beliefs. They implemented culture. They won. I just got done watching the Dallas Cowboys documentary from when Jimmy Johnson took over. I don't know if I remembered how bad they were Jimmy Johnson's first year. I honestly didn't. And I grew up in that era. I didn't remember that. And the stuff that had to be done in order to implement that culture to win. So we're focused on culture right now. I don't know what that means from an expectation level for winning, but that's what we're focused on.
So in terms of a game-to-game approach, and the club was towards the bottom of the league in offense and defense, special teams weren't bad. But if you were going to say, this is what I want this club to do systematically on a night-to-night basis to try to build that foundation back to respectability, what does that look like?
Well, I'd say in general, I think you have to be able to defend to ultimately win a championship. If you don't defend, you will not win a championship. And so we have to make sure that our players are a couple different things. Number one, they know how to angle. They know how body position. They know stick detail. They know all those fundamentals that help make you a good two-way player. Number two, one of the best ways to defend well is to have the puck. So what are the things we're going to have to do to win pucks? How are we going to train our guys to make sure that we're winning those 50-50 battles and all those loose pucks? So those are more from a fundamental standpoint. Yep. From a big picture standpoint, when we don't have the puck, we're going to pressure. We're going to take away time and space. We're going to try to not give the opponent any inch of ice. From a offensive standpoint, we want to make sure we play fast, we play vertical, and we use our speed. We are a fast team, and we're going to continue to be a fast team. So those would be the two big picture things: pressure, take away time and space, and then let's play really fast.
Jeff, one of the players I enjoy watching every night that I get to watch the Red Wings play is Dylan Larkin. I can't imagine anybody that doesn't like watching Dylan Larkin play. He puts everything he's got into every game, every shift. You had him his first 7 seasons of his career. Does this help you helping develop a high-end player like Dylan Larkin? Is that going to help you with like Connor Bedard and others that have that high-end skill level?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I was very, very excited about this job, and as you guys know, there's 32 jobs. They're all great, great jobs. But this one for me, it felt like the absolute best fit for a number of reasons, and one of which was my coaching experience and my skill set. I think are a real good fit for this job. Having the opportunity to go through a rebuild in Detroit and help develop some of the young players like Larks, who's a great, great person and a great player and a great person to coach, is going to help me. But so is, spending time in Tampa with the Kucherovs and the Stamkos and the Hedmans and the way that those elite players think and Kuch would make me think about things I never would have thought of. And you only can kind of get that perspective from when you coach them. And so is coaching in Grand Rapids and having a whole bunch of young guys and a few veterans, which is honestly real similar to our roster now. Those are all experiences that I think have helped prepare me for this. Every guy's a little bit different. Certainly Connor in his particular case has kind of come up through minor hockey into junior into pro under in a spotlight seen by hardly any others. There's very few that have been in that type of spotlight, and so understanding that, I think just one's important. I think Connor's been 18 and 19 in this league, and it's a hard league to be 18 and 19. Yet his numbers have been very, very good in relative to the numbers of other great stars, how they were their first couple of years. Connor's been great. I think at the end of the day, the key in coaching, and it's whether you're coaching Connor or anybody really, is that you build a relationship with them so that you can earn their trust. And until you have a relationship, I don't think you can earn their trust. And then once you do that, then you can be very direct about you're on the right path to greatness or you're on the wrong path. And you just keep telling them those times they're on the right path and when they're not.
Michael Peca is one of your new assistant coaches, having come over from the New York Rangers. And Peca was a very solid two-way hockey player. And one of the knocks against Bedard in his first 2 seasons has been his play away from the puck. And it's been documented through really woeful plus minus. So what are the things that you and Peca and the rest of the coaching staff are working on with Bedard to make him more of a 200-foot player? It's not going to get there all at once, obviously, but what's the first steps to improving that part of his game?
The first thing I'd say is if you show me a young kind of superstar, I'm probably going to show you a guy who needs to get better defensively. And the reality is, in almost every single case, and you name the guy, and I would say yes, they had to come to the league and they had to learn how to be a two-way player. And some of them, honestly, are still learning. I had a chance to coach Jack Eichel on 2 world championship teams. Yep. It's been awesome to watch him grow his two-way game and to the point to where he was a Stanley Cup champion. But he had to grow that game. It didn't come automatically, because when they come up in younger hockey, they have the puck the whole night. So I think Connor's just like every other young superstar coming in the league. They have to grow that two-way game. So how are we going to help him? One, I think, just having Michael Peca in his perspective, in his experiences are extremely important. We were doing an angling drill the other day, and he said, the best angling drill I ever did. And he started talking about a series, and I think I don't even know what year it was, 2002, and it was up in it. And so those are life experiences that he has that I didn't, and so we can learn from those. Connor can learn from those. Frank Nazar can learn from those. Chicago Blackhawks have had 3 Selke winners in the history of the franchise. Michael Peca won it twice. That's how good a defensive player he was, or two-way player he was. So he could definitely, he's going to bring a lot to the table that way. We're just, again, we're going to start with all those little fundamentals for all our guys. And a lot of those, some of those fundamentals are offensive, but some are defensive. And again, angling, body position, stick detail, and then work through D-zone coverage, how you defend better. Some of it, Connor and I talked about going back to the end of last season when I first got the job, and just watching the teams in the finals of the Stanley Cup and how hard they track back, and making sure getting in our guys' heads how hard we have to do that. So, I think he's in a good spot. He wants to continue to grow. He's an excellent athlete. He'll continue to get better.
You had mentioned some of the experience along with the youth when you were coaching in the minor leagues. And I think a lot of people don't realize that you actually have some other pieces in place. You've got leadership with Nick Foligno and Connor Murphy. You have Tyler Bertuzzi, Teuvo Teravainen, Ilya Mikheyev. And you've got some size on your back line also. Not a lot of well-known players, but I saw a guy like Louis Crevier make some good strides last year. So, again, you've got some pieces here.
Yeah, no, I think we have pieces. We're young, and that's we have a lot of talent at the forward, defense, and goaltending position. Most of it unproven, most of it young. But again, there's talent there. We also have, as you said, some real good veterans, guys that are been through the league and I think are going to do a good job of being what I would call Papa Bears, helping the young guys come along. Nick Foligno's an excellent leader. Some of those guys are going to lead by example. Some are going to lead by example and talking a little bit. Our D-core is extremely young outside of Connor Murphy. The rest of them are very, very young, but they're talented. And honestly, I think they're talented in a way that is successful in the NHL. They're big, they can skate, and they're efficient. They're not like flashy offensive guys, but they know how to move a puck. They know how to produce some offense in the blue line, and they're big, and that's by design. The management staff is drafted that way. I think that's how you win in the NHL. Now it's just a matter of maturing our team game and each guy maturing in their own game.
Jeff, going back to what you said about great offensive players coming into the league, let me just give you a couple of names that backs up your point. Joe Sakic, Steve Yzerman. I can go on to the people, Doug Gilmour, and teams are ready to give up on these guys early in their career. I mean, I know for a fact that hard to believe, but you could have a conversation with Quebec about Sakic. Hard to believe, but that's because they didn't know that he could develop into the player that he did develop into, and the same with Stevie Y, and the same obviously with Doug Gilmour.
Yeah. And that's just, and honestly, it's not the young superstars' fault. They whatever level they were at, they were so much better than the players they were playing against. They would go, they might give up a chance, but they're going to create 8 chances for the one chance they give up. Well, any coach would take that, right? Well, here, all of a sudden everybody's equal. Now, if you start giving up 4 chances, you might never get to 4 chances for, and so you can't even get to the even level, much less the to get on the high side of that. They all need to come in and learn how to defend. Almost all of them. Every once in a while, you get a guy. Listen, Patrice Bergeron defended good right away. Every once in a while, you get one of those guys that just he probably wasn't as heralded as some of the other guys and whatnot. But most of the young superstars, they have to learn how to grow their two-way game, and I think that starts with the understanding that they get it, that they want to do it. And I know in Connor's case, he wants to be the best player and he wants to win. He wants those two things. And so the same goes for Frank Nazar. Same goes for a lot of our young players. So, I've got a group here that's ready to be coached, that's ready to kind of listen and learn and ready to go out and try to do the right stuff.
So you've been a couple of weeks at training camp now. Has there been anybody that you thought like, man, I didn't even know about this guy. This guy's pretty good. Has there been some pleasant surprises for you?
I don't know. I mean, I had a decent feel, obviously, kind of watching a bunch going into the year here. I would say I didn't know. I didn't know Jason Dickinson as a person at all. I knew him a little bit as a player. Very, very, very impressed with him. He's got a good way about him. I think he understands what he is. I think he's really good at what he's good at. I think Ilya Makhayev's been, again, probably a guy that I didn't know great coming in. He's been impressive for me. Those guys, I knew some other guys' games better. I obviously have known Bertuzzi for a while. I've known some of the other guys a little bit better, but those are a couple of guys I didn't know that have been impressive to me. The young guys have all showed flashes of being really good. Alex Vlasic's been really, really good. He's a guy now. I think this will be his 3rd full season. And he's like the 2nd veteran on our D-corps. But he's been really, really good in camp. He's big. He can skate. He can pass a puck. He can really defend. He's a guy that I think is going to have a really good year. He's been really good for us.
And being a goaltender, I got to ask you about Spencer Knight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually knew Spencer as he was kind of coming up. I live real close to USA Arena, so he played for the U.S. national team program. I would be over there watching practices, watching games. I always felt Spencer had a chance to be really high end. And last year I was an assistant in Tampa, and that trade happened. I was kind of miffed because I knew we were gonna play Florida and it was gonna help Florida getting Seth Jones. But now I'm glad the trade happened because we get a chance to have Spencer Knight. And I think Spencer's got a chance to be a top 10 goalie in the league. He's got to go do it. And I think we also Sodi was great the other night. We have a number of goaltenders in the pipeline here that I think can give us really good goalie depth. But I do think Spencer has the ability to go do it. And part of that though, as Neil, like, we got to play good D to get good goaltending. Like you can't get good goaltending without good defense. So we'll have to make sure we shore that up.
Jeff, last one from me. One of your other assistant head coaches, and of course we already mentioned Michael Peca, but one of your other assistants is Andrew Sorensen, who finished the season behind the Blackhawks bench last year, taking over for Luke Richardson. And very often, and certainly situation like yourself, you see a head coach go after he leaves one team, he might be an assistant somewhere else before getting another head coaching job. But it usually doesn't happen within the same team where a guy's a head coach and then he becomes an assistant. What's your relationship with him, and what are your expectations for what he can bring to the club in the assistant role?
Yeah, Anders and I have known each other for probably 15 years. And so, and we've talked a lot over those years on hockey. We've never actually been on the same staff, but we've been in like little, I'd say, close-knit hockey group settings where there's 6 coaches and we're bouncing around ideas. I used to recruit when I was a college hockey coach, and Anders was a coach here in Chicago, and I'd recruit players off him. So I've known him a long time. Yep. And I always had a ton of, first of all, he's a great, great human being. And I always felt he was really, really smart, really good teacher. I've watched his practices. Real calm demeanor. And so when I got the job, I wanted to keep Anders because I think he's really good. And I also think it helps to have, one guy that's kind of been through this and has the trust of a lot of our younger players and has some relationship already built with them. So I was pumped to keep Anders, to be honest. I think he's going to help our guys a lot. He's going to run the D. He's kind of going to work hand in hand with the D. He's got relationships with a lot of those young D already. I think I'm really lucky. I think our staff is, you round that out with Mike Vellucci, who's coached years and years in the Ontario League, won championships, American League, won championships. He's won everywhere he's gone. And then he's worked for Mike Sullivan for the last 7 years, I think. So, and Sully's obviously one of the better coaches in the league. So, I just think between that group, it's a pretty honestly special group that is gonna put us in position to have success.
Well, Jeff, we're all going to be pulling for you. I have on my hat to make sure
love
that
I love the hat.
Yeah. You get to coach. Here's my final shot. You get to coach the best uniforms in the league. Maybe in all of sports. Best uniforms in all of sports. That's what always made me a Blackhawk fan when I was a little guy, watching Stan Mikita and Bobby Hull and Tony Esposito and Pierre Pilote and Kenny Warham. I could go on and on and on. I know all those names, but we really appreciate you doing this, taking time from training camp to come on and talk to us. And we'll be pulling for you this season, and hopefully you'll get some overachieving done there.
I appreciate it. I mean, like I said, I'm excited about it. We're gonna take steps forward this year, and I'm real excited. We'll have our ups and downs. We're gonna take steps forward. I can't wait to get going.
Well, thanks for doing this, Jeff. Thanks for being on the show with us.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
All the best. Neil, a lot of folks were perhaps surprised that Jeff Blashill was named head coach of the Chicago Blackhawks after not making the playoffs in his final 6 seasons with Detroit. But given his real strengths in player development and player growth and where the Blackhawks are, given this run of being a bottom feeder for many years now, this appears to be a very good fit.
I think so. And I think he's a development coach. He's a guy that's worked with young players in Detroit and worked very hard. Obviously, he was doing a good job, not only in Grand Rapids, but then in his first year in Detroit, they made the playoffs. That was the last year they've made it. And yes, he did go the 6 seasons without the playoffs, but no coach probably could have got the group in. And I'm sure that the management of the Red Wings, going from Ken Holland to Jimmy Devellano and now Steve Yzerman recognize, that he was doing a good job for them, and they didn't feel like firing him just because he didn't have the horses.
It's going to be interesting to see in this first year the style it's implemented and how this team starts to grow and become responsible on the defensive side of the puck, where they were particularly weak last year too.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the things that he's going to work on very hard. He's got some super talent there, so he's got something to work with. That's for sure.
Well, and Connor Bedard and Frank Nazar with that big contract. So nothing is ever boring in a big city like Chicago. And we certainly wish him all the best in his first season as bench boss of the Hawks.
And gets to coach a great rivalry. First Detroit, now Chicago. They're arch rivals and two original six teams. He's got to feel a little bit lucky to have landed those two jobs.
For sure. All right, some other news. Carter Hart is now down to about 4 teams as to determining where he's going to go once he's eligible to sign a contract on October 15th. Carolina, Vegas, and 1 or 2 other clubs are out there. Now, let's also note that forward Michael McLeod is also rumored to be headed to Carolina. But as you had pointed out before, there is some backlash coming from Hurricane fans, and a petition of about 1,200 signatures has gone to the club urging the team not to sign either of these players. And there are some that are even threatening the cancellation of their season tickets.
Well, and you knew there would be backlash. Whenever you get problems of abuse, there are going to be people that are going to lash out and say, I don't want to pay to see that guy play. And although that they did get found innocent of their criminality in this court case, a lot of the stuff that came out was pretty ugly, and that really did happen. So, you can see how there would be some people that would not want to support those players.
And the acquittal that you're referencing to stem from the sexual misconduct charges in an incident while Hart, McLeod, and Alex Formerton, Cal Foote, and Dylan Dubé were playing for Team Canada during the 2018 World Junior Championships. And it just goes to show that even though they were acquitted, the stigma still follows.
Yeah, and it's not, I just want to emphasize it. It's not as if they were charged with something and the girl had made it up. I mean, the stuff that came out in discovery and in evidence in the court was plain ugly. So, it's not like, well, she said this, but you never did that. Well, what you did wasn't really in the best thought process. So, you've got to take the heat for that.
Stay tuned because the month of October is fast approaching. Other news, Joseph Woll taking an indefinite leave of absence from the Toronto Maple Leafs for a family matter. There is no timetable for his return. On Tuesday, GM Brett Treliving said that this is not injury related. It is not substance abuse. The club is fully supporting Woll until he gets back. Dennis Hildeby will have the opportunity to step in as Anthony Stolar's backup during Woll's absence. Some injury updates and a lot of small things going around, but we've picked 4 out for the MASH unit here. On Thursday, Alex Barkov left the Florida Panthers practice with a right knee injury. He had an awkward fall, helped off the ice. No word yet on how long he is going to be out. Jamie Benn, captain of the Dallas Stars, having surgery for a collapsed lung. He will be reevaluated in 4 weeks. For the New York Islanders, their captain, Anders Lee, out 1 to 2 weeks with an upper body injury. He was tripped into the boards during the Islanders preseason opener on Sunday. And defenseman Nick Hague for the Nashville Predators out 4 to 6 weeks with an upper body injury suffered in a preseason game on Sunday. But I think the point here, Neil, is Lee may be back for the start of the Islanders season, and if he misses any time, it'll probably be 1 or 2 games. But it's interesting to draw the line here that given the depth of Florida and Dallas versus the depth of the Islanders and Nashville, two teams that missed the playoffs last year, it just goes to show you that the Stars and the Panthers will be able to survive because of the depth on those clubs. Whereas it's a very narrow margin for teams like the Predators and the Islanders that were on the outside looking in last year and just trying to make their way back to the playoffs.
Any team that missed the playoffs last year is looking to stay healthy this year, and the Islanders are no exception. Of course, Anders Lee, as you said, will probably be back for their opener, and if he's not, may miss a game or two. But you're right that the Dallas Stars, with their depth that they have, and the Florida Panthers with their incredible depth that they have, will be able to get by these. Now, if Barkov is out for any gross length of time, that they're going to miss him. He, as we all know from watching the last two playoff years, he's a horse for the Florida Panthers, and they would very much miss him.
Back to things that are happening on the ice. Edmonton Oilers head coach Chris Knobloch announcing that Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl will open the season on the same line, and it looks like Trent Frederick will be first in line to join them to round out that top line. And, Neil, when you look at the forwards that are gone from Edmonton that were part of the team that made the Stanley Cup final for the second consecutive spring, Corey Perry, Victor Arvidsson, Connor Brown, Jeff Skinner, Vander Kane, and Zach Hyman will be out until at least November from the injury that he suffered in the Western Final against Dallas. Is this a situation where Knobloch perhaps wants to just load up, get as much offense as possible from their top two players? Hopefully they get some fill-in in lines 2 through 4 to get them until Hyman gets back, and perhaps Bowman has to make another move to get some more forwards.
You know, it very well could be that the thinking behind the coaching staff is, as you just said, but it also could be that the players themselves, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, want to play together, and there was some kind of communication about that with the coaching staff. So it could be a combination of both. And usually with your top end guys like McDavid and Draisaitl, you're going to confer with them and find out what their feelings are about playing together and who they want to play with. And then you try to work it all out on the ice and find out who's going to be that third guy in that forward line. But make no mistake about it, that the Edmonton Oilers are not nearly as deep as what you saw last June when they were battling against the Florida Panthers.
And perhaps Isaac Howard, the 2025 Hobey Baker Award winner, coming over in a trade from Tampa, can supplement some of that offense. But as we look at this Oiler team now, we look at McDavid's contract situation, and part of him potentially agreeing to re-up with the Oilers was going to be baked in as to whether or not this team is better or have been made better during the course of the offseason by Stan Bowman. I don't see it.
No, I don't see it either. And I think when we did our summer coolers and we talked about the Edmonton Oilers, we talked about their lack of depth there. And so you're not going to see as good a team starting this season as you saw finish last season. They just don't have the depth.
This will be a team that is going to be a fascinating watch this entire season, because there are just so many tenuals out there, and the way that they are going to either take shape as their own individual stories or intertwine is going to be something that I think hockey fans are going to follow the entire season.
I think so too. And of course, the Oilers are always very entertaining and very interesting because they've got two of the very best players in the league. I mean, in Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. And then they've got people like Zach Hyman, who's a very good player, 50 goal scorer. They've got Evan Bouchard, who's is a great offensive weapon for them. Yeah. So they're an interesting watch every year, but particularly this year because of the McDavid situation and that his contract is expiring.
They say things come in threes, and unfortunately, we have had 3 Hall of Fame goaltenders leave us in a span of 16 days. We had mentioned in one of our earlier shows that Ken Dryden passed on September 5th at the age of 78 due to cancer. We lost Eddie Jockman, longtime Rangers and Detroit Red Wings goaltender, on September 14th at age 86. And over the past weekend, Bernie Parent, age 80, Flyers backstop for their 2 Stanley Cup championships in 1974 and 75. And we had the privilege of speaking with Parent along with Jay Snyder back last May, I think before many people even knew that we were doing a podcast. And we had so much fun with Parent, and we have re-released that episode as an encore. So we invite people to go back and listen to that. But 3 real giants in their position, all stylistically different, and all truly left their marks on the National Hockey League.
And I believe all 3 have their numbers retired by their teams. Yeah. Eddie Jockman with the Rangers, of course. Ken Dryden's number 29 is in the Bell Center. And Bernie Parent's number is hanging up with prestigious Flyers in the home ice of the Philadelphia Flyers. So it's sad. I encourage people to listen and watch that episode we did, Reliving the Cup on Broad Street, because Bernie Parent's sense of humor is uncanny. And he was great on the show. And it's sad that he's passed, but I'm so happy that we had the privilege of having him on.
He was such a character, but everything that he said in that episode truly came from the heart. His appreciation to the Snyders and the Flyers organization, and it was one of the true highlights of the more than year and a half that you and I have spent together doing this, and really one of the very first Hall of Famers that we had on.
Yeah, that's right. And little did we know at that time we wouldn't have a Hall of Fame show that we now do. But he was just spectacular on that thing. And that was a great Flyer to have on to celebrate their Stanley Cup in 1974.
We'll miss all of them. That'll wrap up our show for today. Thanks to Chicago Blackhawks head coach Jeff Blashill for joining us.
And thank you to you, the listeners. Send your questions, comments, or anything you want to Neil at NHLWraparound.com or Vic at NHLWraparound.com. We love hearing from you. The podcast is on all the platforms, including Apple, Amazon, iHeart, Spotify, and of course, YouTube. And our complete catalog of all of the podcast episodes we've ever done is on our website, NHLWraparound.com. Please continue to try to get the word out there. Tell as many people as you can to subscribe, because that's what's going to keep this show going.
You know who Brody Goalie is?
Isn't he number 600?
He is our 600 subscribers. So for Brody Goalie and to all of the 599 other subscribers, we thank you. Hey, if you got one friend out there that you can refer our podcast to, please do so. Every time we hit 100 or another 100, we'll mention your name on the podcast. So maybe a little extra incentive there.
Like Brody Goalie.
That's it. Coming up on Monday, we have our next Hall of Fame edition with legendary Detroit Red Wing Steve Yzerman. And next Wednesday, we will have another Hall of Fame show with perhaps the greatest open ice hitter in the history of the NHL and 3-time Stanley Cup champion and captain with the New Jersey Devils, Scott Stevens. And then on Friday, the 3rd of October, it will be our season preview, and we will be joined by longtime Canadian commentator and host of the Sheet podcast, Jeff Marek. So for us, Neil, A lot of traffic ahead, and we hope that our listeners will enjoy every step of the way as we continue to grow our brand.
No, I'm excited for these fellas that are coming on. They're great guests, and I can't wait to do it.
And we hope you enjoy them all as well. So have a great weekend, and look for those Hall of Fame editions next week, along with our season preview. Take care, all.
Thanks for joining us on the NHL Wraparound podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on all the NHL action.